Right, so I'm bored and I just came up with an idea. I want to talk about a few of my favorite books that I've read um, going on from like a decade up to some, or one of them at least, very recently. I don't know yet if I want to make a separate channel based on books, but I recently, very recently, got into a really huge reading spree, reading kick kind of thing. And I've always been one of those readers that will read strong for like a month or two and then stop for like 6 months to a year and then start for another month or two and then just stop for 6 months to a year. So I've always been kind of like a binge reader, but for really short periods of time. But I've been really getting into reading lately, and I finished one book that I'm going to be talking about in this review that I just absolutely fell in love with and became like a 5 out of 5 star book. And if I could give it a 6 star, I would. But I'm just making this video basically to test it out and to see how many people want to listen to me talk about books, basically, and to see if any of my followers or anybody who's interested in my film content would also be up to listening or hearing me talk about books. These 3 books that I'm going to be talking about are also, 2 of them are films and have been made into films, and one of them has been made into a documentary. So I'm not venturing completely from the film stuff, and this is not going to be like a regular thing or anything unless it takes off, like I said. But we'll see what happens. This is just something I decided to do for shits and giggles, really. The first book is Let the Right One In. This was my favorite book for a long time. I read it in my early 20s. I think maybe I was 22 or something like that. And I read this no. I read this after I watched the Swedish film, yeah. So I read this book after I watched the Swedish film, but I think I had only watched the Swedish film once. And this is the definition of a book that, you know, there is no comparison to the film. Everybody says that, I know. But you have the American remake with Chloe Grace Moretz, and it's very good. It's like here. And then you have the Swedish version, the original version, which is like here. But then you have the book, and the book is like to the moon. Okay? Like, you have to give this book a shot. If you have even a sliver of interest in reading, I mean, if you despise reading and you find it the most boring thing in the world, forget it. But if you have any interest in reading, read the source material for Let the Right One In, because it is fantastic. It goes so much deeper into this girl's father, or the guy who found her. I forget his name now, but it really goes much deeper into his character, into his psyche, and the 2 leads as well, the boy and the girl. But man, like, it's a chill. I mean, like, it gives you goosebumps. Like, it's creepy. It's a creepy ass book, and it is like I said, it was my favorite till I read the next book that I'm going to be talking about. It was my favorite for at least a decade. My favorite book of all time, and I could not stop talking about it when anybody would mention the movies, which are great. I would always say, though, like, there is no comparison to the book. So I strongly recommend going to read Let the Right One In if you're familiar with the films and if you want to read something incredible. And then I read this book, which I've talked about on the channel already. I talked about the series, but I haven't watched any of the series before I read the book. So I did read the book first in this case, and that is The Stand. I reviewed the 2020 Stand miniseries after reading this book, and I did book to episode comparisons, so you can go check those out on the channel. Just look up Morgan Film Fan, The Stand. But I read the book first, and this is a book that's over 1,000 pages. This this is a brick of a book. But once again, I didn't watch the 1994 miniseries yet, so I can't do the book comparison to that one. But this, again, doesn't hold a candle, or I should say the show doesn't hold a candle to this book. This book is a masterpiece. People say all the time, literally, I'm going to say this right now, people say all the time, this book changed my life. And you're just like, okay, this book changed my life. I mean it. And now I know what people are talking about by saying that. Like the characters in this book are so in depth. The 2020 series does a good job covering pretty much everything that's important in the book for sure. But the characters in the book, when you read the book, are just so much more interesting, and you care more about them than what they executed in the show. For one, I won't deny that the show, basically put this book in a nutshell fairly well, but nowhere close to as interesting and as epic as this fucking read is. Like it's just so good. This is my favorite Stephen King book. This is currently my favorite book ever. My favorite fictional novel on the planet. It beat Let the Right One In, and it took a decade for me to find a book that beat Let the Right One In. So this is another one that if you have the patience for, I mean, don't just watch The Stand and be like, okay, I know everything. Go read the freaking book, and if you haven't seen the shows, read the book first. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, take the time to read that masterpiece because it's fucking ridiculous. It's so good. It is so good. Lastly, the last book I'm going to be talking about is one that I read most recently, and I've always been a metal fan, first of all, and I knew the subject matter of this book, and the fact that this singer wrote a memoir about his experiences already intrigued me because I already heard about his experiences, and I was like, yeah, I really want to get more of a understanding of everything he went through. So this is Dark Days. This is a memoir by Randy Bly, and it's spelt Blith, but it's pronounced Bly. He makes that very clear in the book. So he mentions that pretty much everybody that ever pronounces his name pronounces it Blith or Blythe, but it's Bly, yeah. What happened to him, for people who don't know, is in 2012 he flew to the Czech Republic for a show with his band, and he got arrested at the airport because of something he did 2 years prior, which he was convicted of. Apparently, there was a death of a fan at one of his shows, and the claim was that he pushed him off the stage, and then this fan hit his head on the ground and died like 2-3 weeks later in the hospital. He was in a coma or something, and he suffered brain damage, and he passed away. And then when Randall Bly landed in the airport with his band, they arrested him immediately, and he basically is being tried by the laws of the Czech Republic, which is not the most modernized country kind of thing. So, he basically went to this prison called, or pronounced, I should say, Panrats. Panrats is not spelt Panrats; it's spelt in a Czech. Like if you read it, it doesn't sound in English like Panrats. It's spelt way differently, but that's how the prison is pronounced. He had to stay in this prison. Was dirty, it was scummy, and he was petrified. He didn't even know what he did. This was 2 years before, and it just goes through his experience in Panrats and his experiences through trial and his attorneys and all that. Randy Bly is also a recovering alcoholic, and he talks about that. He talks about recovery. He talks about therapy, like how the sober life is just exceptionally better than being addicted to anything, drugs, drink, even gambling or sex or porn or whatever. He has this way of writing that I just immediately fell in love with. He's hilarious. You laugh at this book. You feel like he's clenching your heart at some points with the way he words things. Like you cry sometimes or feel like it. You understand. You can paint a visual picture in your mind with the way he words things, and it's really easy to follow, and it really keeps your interest very, very well. Like it's very hard to read this book and like get distracted or not be kind of sucked into it kind of thing. So this ended up also being one of my favorite books that I've read, and one that I would certainly give a 6 star to because I definitely loved the journey of this book, and just am amazed at how this guy kind of took his circumstances and lived with them and survived it, but what he did to keep himself mentally sane. And his, the people he meets in the prison, they're all hilarious. They're all characters, and there's a lot of lessons learned in this book. I mean, it's a freaking guide to life, really. There's so much you can learn from this book, so much. If I could ever in my life end up with the possibility of getting this book signed by Randy Blythe. Did I mention Randy Blythe is the lead singer of Lamb of God? For people who don't know, a metal band. I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know if people watching this video are metal fans or not, but Randy Blythe is the lead singer of the metal band Lamb of God. And I've been a metal fan all my life, punk fan, hard rock fan, all that good stuff. So listening to this guy's story, it was just pretty much incredible. And if I could have the opportunity of having this book signed by him, whew, that would be something that I would never get rid of, and that I would always hold on to. I'm hanging on to this book regardless. Like, this is not a book that I'm going to be getting rid of, but I highly recommend Dark Days as well. So those are 3 of my favorite current books, and all of them have been made into films. This one is a documentary on his time in jail, came out after this book, but a lot of what's in this book I hear is in the documentary. It's called As the Palaces Burn, and I have not seen the documentary, but I'm interested in watching it. And of course, this is 2 miniseries, and this was made into 2 films. So, like I said, the books are film related, but I felt like talking about 3 of my favorite reads, just to change things up a bit for my channel and see if people gravitate towards it or are interested in it. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed my book chat. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for that. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.